right.
All right.
We are live, guys.
We are
Welcome.
live.
Welcome to our Seeds of Wisdom Voice of the Indigenous Mexico site visit series live stream. So basically, we have the team together. We got the band back together a year out from the trip, and the series is out, all 6 episodes. The last episode just premiered last week or earlier on Monday. And yeah, we're just going to have a conversation about everything we went through on the trip, what it took to do, a trip like that where we visited so many community partners. So I just want to start off by let's just introduce ourselves and say what we do for the organization, and then I'll play the trailer for anybody who hasn't seen the series yet. So, Paloma, why don't we start with you and yeah, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yes, I am Paloma Abregu, and I am the Director of Community Partners here at Seeds of Wisdom. And my day-to-day work is basically to be in touch with our community partners and help them in the different facets that they need help in. Sometimes often it's fundraising, helping them get more funds for their programs, but then it's also helping them construct documents and letters and things of that sort, as well as go looking around for different potential partners that would be a good match for us, and yeah, basically, and potential other partners that we can co-fund with as well. So yeah, I do a few different things related to anything that has to do with philanthropy and Indigenous communities.
Awesome. And how long have you been with the organization, and how did you find the organization? Like how did it all happen?
Yeah, it was during the pandemic. So, as you know, I have my own organization, Sapichai, and during the pandemic, we struggled a lot with our own fundraising because everything was shut down. We couldn't really do our programs. So, because I knew we couldn't do our programs, we weren't really fundraising for anything additional than other than adapting to our situation. And basically I realized I was like, okay, I need to have a second job because I'm not gonna be able to survive in this situation. And one of our funders, one of Sapichai's funders, who I am quite close with, um, was just checking in on me and asked how I was doing, and I explained how I was doing, and she's like, well, if I hear of anything, I'll let you know. And she reached out to me when she did hear about a opening position at Seeds of Wisdom back then, Sacred Fire Foundation. And she was like, I feel like this would be a good match. And she put us in touch, and I had the interview. And when I was interviewing with Kim, literally in mid-interview, like we're going through our interview process, and I was curious. I was like, so just out of curiosity, when do you think you're going to know um, when you're wanting to fill the spot, and when I should be expecting some sort of just notice as to whether I did or didn't get the job, or if there's going to be a second interview. And in the middle of it, she was like, oh no, you can start like now, like yesterday. And I was like, wait, what? It was such a Kim moment. And I didn't know it was a Kim moment until like later working with her. I realized like, that's a very Kim. She's very like, I'm excited about this and I'm going to act on that excitement now. And yeah, and it was wonderful. It's been incredible. I love this organization, and I love the work that we do, and I love my team that I work with, and yeah, it's wonderful.
Awesome. So on that note, Ryan, if you want to introduce yourself and yeah, how you got
Yes.
wrapped up in all this.
All right. So I am Ryan Dragon. I am, I guess you could say, the newbie here. I'm part of the grant selection committee. Um, my my involvement was just helping to select where the funding will go. Um, um, and
What goes into that? Like how many do you look at, and like what's that process
so
like?
there are a few. There are about 12 to 15, I believe. Um, and yeah, just basically going through them, analyzing them, figuring out I mean, first, which are legit, and which would be important enough to take on. Um, yeah.
Awesome.
So
So
I just
then,
I just want to quickly add something to Ryan's response if I can. So there's different pods, and so him and his partner got 12 to 15, but then there's others. In total, we had about 150. So we get a large amount of applications in per cycle, and we have certain requirements that they're supposed to meet, and everybody knows what those requirements are. So when he says like the evaluating the importance, it's not so much like is the project important enough, it's more like does it match the requirements that we have for the kind of funding that we provide, because there's a lot of amazing projects, but they fall outside of what we generally fund. I just
awesome.
wanted to clarify that because they are all important and they're all wonderful. It's often really hard to
Right,
choose.
right. Yeah. Sorry.
Cool. So then, on that note, I'll introduce myself. Paloma, you and I started around the same time, so it was around the pandemic time, and I'm the creative director at Seeds of Wisdom, so I handle all of our filmmaking, storytelling, video duties. And yeah, it's been an absolute honor just sharing stories from Indigenous communities and getting to meet so many different communities from around the world. It's just really been the type of work that I've always been fascinated with and knew that I would probably have something to do with at some point. But the way that I actually joined was Kim, our previous executive director. She reached out to me after she saw my America Endgame meme during that madness of the 2020 election. And after that went viral, she just assumed like I would be a good fit, I guess. Maybe she saw something in the message that had. I don't know. That might be reading into it too much, but she reached out to me and I just said that I have an affinity for indigenous cultures and particularly Native American culture is something that I've wanted to learn more about and just kind of just delve into and support in any way that I could. And so the way that I can do that is just through storytelling and filmmaking. And so it was pretty quick after that. And it's been over 3 years now. It's just been an incredible journey, which, you know, the peak has been this Mexico trip that we went on. So um, on that note, before we jump into talking about all the behind the scenes goodies and everything that went on during that trip, I'm just going to play the trailer for anybody who hadn't seen the series, just to give you a little taste of what the series is about. I'm going to play this quick trailer just so that you can see what we're going to be actually talking about. So I'm going to pull that up now.
I am Paloma Abregu. I am the Director of Community Partners here at Seeds of Wisdom. We're an organization that supports Indigenous grassroots organizations and Indigenous communities all around the world. We're here in Mexico with the Seeds of Wisdom team so that we can visit the community partners that we have currently in this region.
They're trained how to deal with severe malnutrition.
To witness the work that's being done and see how else we can be of support. This type of impact on these Indigenous communities, it moves you. It's incredible. And it wasn't one story that was like that. It was so many stories that were like that.
All right, so that's all. It's all done now. The series is out there for the world to see. All 6 episodes are out. and they all kind of have their own personality. I think personally, I'm biased. Obviously I like worked on the series and edited it, but episodes 3 and 4 are tied to each other. They're connected more so than the other episodes. And I think episodes 3 and 4 are really the highlight. But every episode has something special. Every episode has a lot of Momo, who I think is a favorite, an audience favorite. But why don't we just start off with Paloma? There's a lot of talk in this Indigenous philanthropy space about the value of site visits and what the purpose of site visits are in general. So
Yeah.
why don't you speak to the purpose of site visits and how hard I know that you had to push to do these types of site visits? Because I know that they're sort of frowned upon in some organizations because they can be disruptive, and they can require resources that, frankly, a lot of the communities don't want to spend or waste on, having a bunch of people come into their community. But I think the way we did it was unique. So why don't you talk to us about the process of even starting talking about doing a site visit and then what it took to make it actually happen?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of perspectives that I can touch upon in regards to the challenges. And I think the first challenge was having the budget approved for this and to begin with. And that was because I think our board didn't really, they themselves hadn't done a site visit in a while, I believe, or I'm not even sure if our particular board members had been on any of our site visits beforehand. So how to evaluate the positive impact it was going to have was hard for them, and therefore hard to justify the expense, right? And so I think my first challenge was just like relentlessly pushing and advocating for this trip to happen nonstop. If there's one characteristic, one attribute of mine that can be loved and hated at the same time, is my persistence. And so I felt like it was going to be amazing because I was the one from the organization that was always in touch with our community partners. And because I was always in touch with them, the relationship was building between me and them, but not between them and the rest of the organization, right? So knowing the importance of this particular trip was felt deeply by me and by our community partners. And that's difficult to translate to people who are more on the administrative level of the organization. And that's why, and that was the tricky thing, is because I know it's hard to communicate that in literally just words or something written up, some document. I knew that turning this into an audiovisual piece was going to be able to really communicate it. But first you have to get the approval to get this to even be created. And now that it's been created, everybody's like, oh yeah, this was like a brilliant idea. But that was the first challenge. And then the second challenge was, of course, okay, how do we coordinate everything logistically from so far away? And there's a lot of things that come up along the way, of course, which you can expect, that you don't know how to account for in the future. It's like, okay, we know in the future we'll have certain things that will come up, but what it will be, we don't know. So logistically coordinating that was another challenge. The dates and the distances and all of those things were challenges at the beginning. And I would say maybe some of the reasons why other organizations also find it difficult to do all of this is because, one, it's hard to justify the expense, like I was mentioning. Two, the logistics behind it sometimes can become a bit time consuming, and maybe nobody wants to take on the time to figure out the logistics. And yeah, while coordinating things with the community partners, I was also our in-house travel agent, sorting out all our flights and all our accommodation. And generally there's people who don't want to take on all those different roles, and so then you have to contract someone to do all of that, so it becomes a much more expensive process. But I'm the one who did it for us, so we are able to reduce costs by having me do it. And I think not all organizations maybe have that option to have somebody do all of it. And so maybe that's part of another challenge, that as to why people don't know, organizations don't always do it. It's just the general cost to doing all of this. But then another factor, I think, is I represent a grassroots organization in Peru. And so I know the importance of feeling supported beyond monetarily supported by your funders. And I know how wonderful it feels to have the funders feel invested in your success and be curious and interested enough in coming in and visiting you and seeing how you're doing and seeing how they can highlight your work even more. And that's what I wanted to do for our partners. I wanted to have that opportunity to be able to integrate ourselves, even if it was just going to be for a little bit of time, be able to highlight the work that's being done, be able to show an interest beyond here's your check and get us your report, and that's it. So these challenges are often things that if you haven't been on the other side, you might not realize that it's as important as it is. But because I'm fortunate enough to be on both sides of the same coin, I could say that it was what fueled my desire to see those challenges as just little challenges compared to all the benefits that was going to come out of all of this. But I can understand that maybe if some organizations don't have somebody who's been part of a grassroots organization in another country, they might not see how important it can be. And lastly, I have to say what makes a huge difference is my appearance. The fact that I don't stick out in these communities at all made it so that my time interacting with our community members was seamless in that way. We were all, there was this, it was like a peer-to-peer experience. It never felt like I was this like, coming in with this energy of like, oh, I am this older white person who knows so much more, and I'm going to go in and evaluate you and judge you, and have this pressure that can often be felt by someone outside of your community that often represents that authoritative evaluator role. So that I think also helped, because I really come in with a very different energy. I come in with this like, we're partners. Let's talk and let's hang out and let me see everything. And I have so many questions because I'm curious, and it's not like I've come here to evaluate you. It's and let me share about my experience. So I think if other people haven't had that experience or can't have that experience because of how they look or who they represent, then it can make the choice to do this type of thing that much more challenging. And so therefore I understand it, but I think we had a lot of good things going for us in regards to that made this site visit, or the possibility to do site visits, that much more feasible and beneficial for everybody.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just speaking from my perspective, of course, I'd never been to Mexico before, and I've been all around the world, and I've filmed all around the world. But for some reason, and I partly grew up in Texas, so not having been to Mexico was just a huge hole in my resume, and just something that I wanted to do for a long time. But of course, I was curious how me bringing all this equipment and coming in and definitely sticking out myself there. I was curious how that was going to go, but it was seamless because of you were able to, I don't know, just like you said, I think that they saw you as a peer and a friend, and that's it. That makes a huge difference. And I think because we were friends of yours and your colleagues, they accepted us with open arms. And I think, people can tell from watching the series, but I think it's pretty easy to tell how much these communities loved you and how much they related to you and how seen that they felt by you. It was quite powerful to witness that and to film it. And I think that's got to be the key with site visits, is it has to come from a place of love first. And once that's established and they let you in, I mean, the fire ceremony that we experienced with them, so
Mm.
many different experiences that we had with these communities. Uh, I felt like they really brought us in and made us feel like we were part of their families as well. And
Yeah.
filming it was fascinating. I mean, it was just um, one of the more incredible things that I've had the opportunity to film. But I definitely felt like them seeing us, particularly Ryan and I, because we stood out more. I think that they were curious where we came
Mhm.
from, and but I could also see them looking at you, Paloma, with sort of these aspirational eyes of just feeling
Yeah.
like, oh man, here's this woman who she looks really young, but she knows all this stuff and she's talking about all these cool things. And I could be like her one day, or I would like to be like her one day, to travel around with my dog and go on adventures and be as well educated as you are. And all the things that you bring to the table, I think is just so wonderful of an example for some of these communities to see that there is a way to balance sort of living this modern lifestyle, but keeping true to your indigenous roots, not
Mhm.
abandoning your indigenous background, language, and customs. So on that note, Ryan, did you feel like you stood out? What things you had actually been to Mexico before? So I was the only one who was a rookie as far as like, experiencing Mexico and being there. What was it like for you to go into these indigenous communities and stand out the way we did with our cameras and everything? So why don't you talk about your experience a little bit?
Well, yeah, as you said, I've been to Mexico one time before, so it has a special place in my heart. Um, I felt like I stood out for sure. It's pretty obvious, but yeah, I don't know. I was just surprised by just the warmth I felt from everybody. They were extremely excited to see us, and yeah, I don't know. Didn't I didn't really feel much of a difference between us with the way they interacted. Um, yeah, just they were very welcoming, and although I had been to Mexico before, it's still a different environment than I'm used to. So um, yeah, it was it was
Your mind was blown.
yeah. I'm sorry, I'm running out of words right now, but
Yeah, you were moved for sure, and people
yeah,
can
for
tell that
sure,
in the series. I think
definitely
people
moved.
will be able to.
I've been to Mexico, like I said, but I haven't been in these communities.
That's what
Um,
I was gonna say. I think for Ryan, you've been more in areas where there's probably more tourism, right? Because I think the area that you had been to before, there was more people that looked like you, and maybe not such
yeah,
like, because we went into like deep indigenous communities where there was like
right.
nobody other than the community members. So I'm sure that must have felt quite different than your other Mexico experience.
Yeah, and not so much in, like the resort kind of tourism. I was still in Masunte, and areas of Oaxaca, um, and meeting a lot of um, outsiders, but travelers. Like they go to where the real experience is. But yes, definitely much different from the people who live and breathe in those areas. So
Awesome.
yeah,
That brings us to the actual communities that we visited. So we visited
Mhm.
in total we visited 6 different communities, including IFIP at the very end, which is the Indigenous Funders International Global Conference that happens every couple of years. But Paloma, why don't you speak to how these communities received us and what kind of feedback were you getting from these organizations and from the people? Do you think that they appreciated us being there, and what types of things do you think that they got from us being there?
Yeah, well, I feel like every single community, the experience was a little bit different, of course. And the overall feeling I got was the appreciation for having an opportunity to share in person the impact of the work that we supported, that we funded. And I think that's what people were most excited to share about. Is like, I'm glad you came, and now you can see what you've been supporting. And it's a wonderful feeling to feel that much pride around the work that you do, and have that much pride around the community that you're supporting and that you're a part of. And that came through really strongly, as everybody's enthusiasm and pride in the work that they're doing. So that was probably the unifying piece between all of the community visits. But each one, yeah, the experience was different, because our conversations touched upon capacity building, but different elements of capacity building for different community partners, because some people's had more strength in certain areas compared to other areas. And some had been around for more years than others, and so they had experiences that had been helping them, but that were maybe not updated. Like we spoke about in that last day about the use of social media to help fundraise, to help them become a little bit more independent from the grant applications, because grant applications is great. I mean, it's one way of being able to fundraise for your organization, but there's more ways. And so we had the opportunity to talk about those things. And we were really excited that on one of the site visits, we were given the opportunity to learn about a project that was in the works. And we were able to approve it there and then while we were in Mexico, and let them know on the last day that we were going to be giving them the grant for this new project, for the weaving one. And that was exciting to be able to give that sort of news in person as opposed to in an email. It's also really lovely. And yeah, I mean, it was also really good for us, I think, to travel to the communities, because they could explain to us the complications, the challenges of the community that the community faces, via a document or via a conversation on WhatsApp or Zoom. But it's so different when we are the ones who are actually doing the traveling and seeing how exhausting it is to get to some of these communities, how long it takes, how expensive it is to get there. Because you can imagine, you can hear all these things and read all these things, but until you live it, it doesn't go in as deep as it does, once you're in person. And I think that was also another element that connected all the experiences together, was being able to experience to some degree some of the challenges that they would face. Was very healthy for us as funders to go through, in order to just deepen our awareness and our ability to recognize why they also need to include more funding for certain things. So that's another thing that I think was helpful for them, was having that conversation. Is when we witness certain things, I would say to them, like, well, why don't you include funding for this? And they're like, oh, I didn't think you as an organization, you'd be willing to acknowledge that or fund that. And it was a great opportunity to have these conversations and say, like, no, you should include these things, because these are expenses you have and things that are important for you to cover. And it was a great opportunity to be able to continue building and deepening. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed that while we were there, you could really tell how far the support that we're able to give them goes,
Yeah.
And you can also tell things that you can't via email and via photos, because you can see what the needs are. I mean, in episode 3, we saw the malnutrition in the children there, and these toddlers, and most of them were dealing with malnutrition. And it was heartbreaking, but at the same time, it was nice to see that these organizations care, and that they're there, taking these statistics and doing things that are within their indigenous practices to still be able to bring them to health, but then also incorporating other things that they may need. that we're able to support them with. So that was amazing to see. Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, on that note, just on the series side of things and filming and documenting this whole thing, um, I guess what was it like for you guys to watch this series back? Because I know that it was a whirlwind. We were there for just under a month and going to different communities every couple of days, not very much time to rest. But now that you've had a chance to reflect on it and see the series, how's it been watching this series and seeing yourself and Momo as stars of this docu-series? And how has it what moments I guess stood out to you that maybe you didn't remember or things that just stood out to you from watching it?
I can start unless Ryan, you want to.
I don't know. Should I start?
Yeah, you can start, Ryan. Go ahead.
Sorry. Repeat what was the last part of the question? I'm sorry.
Just how did it feel watching the series, and what stood out to
Oh,
you from watching it, and what moments like were your favorites?
I mean, it was one of the best experiences of my life, honestly. It was so moving. Just it's one thing to watch it, but another thing to actually be there experiencing it. And to watch it pieced together so perfectly. Like you did a great job filming, editing, amazing. Paloma, the way you communicated, just everything that was going on in the communities was just like perfect. And yeah, it was just so moving, and it just brings me back every time I watch these. And yeah, it was just again such an amazing experience. And I love it. I love the series.
Did you have a favorite moment?
A favorite moment? It's tough because there were so many just amazing moments there.
Yeah.
But I would say that driving on the back of the truck on the way to the fire ceremony was one of the most interesting. That for
Yeah.
sure was just very different. I've never experienced that before. And yeah, just everybody's excitement, um, and just how welcoming they were. And yeah, I would say that
That was a
going
lot
to
of
that
fun.
community and then the transportation to the fire ceremony was very, very interesting. But it's hard to narrow down to one, but that in particular sticks out to me for sure.
That was a great one. And if anybody's curious, episode 4 is the fire ceremony, and that's when we hopped in the back of the truck with way too many of us and
Yeah.
driving over to Lake Ziskau to do the fire ceremony. Paloma, what about you? What's it been like watching yourself as the star of a docuseries and watching Momo? And it's funny because I love animals. I mean, I think all of us love animals and dogs, and
Oh yeah.
so I was filming from Momo's perspective just because I was curious what Momo was up to all the time, and I was always checking in on him, but I was also doing it for you, Paloma, because I felt like, you know, you had to carry this series literally on your back, and I thought Momo, what she's not going to want to watch the series if it's just her all the time. So if I make Momo the main character, she'll have no choice but to have to watch the series because I know how much you love Momo. So why don't you talk about what it was like watching it and the responses you've gotten and what your favorite moments are?
Yeah, I mean, watching it is beautiful because you're so in the moment while you're there. And my mind was so focused on logistics all the time that you start to compartmentalize things and you get really like hyper focused on what's happening right in front of you. But I think being so present sometimes with the logistics makes it so that like you can't fully necessarily relax into the whole experience. And so watching it, I was amazed because I was like, oh my God, we did this. This was the most incredible experience. And I already knew it was an incredible experience, but watching the videos again just deepened that feeling that I already had. And of course, it also deepened my commitment to that we must continue doing this. I shared the videos with my family, and it was so funny because I've been in this field of work for over 10 years now, and my dad was like, "Oh, I like get what you do now." After a decade of my life being dedicated to this. And then he was just like, "You need to really do more videos." He was like, "I understand the work now. I understand the need and the purpose and the impact and
That's
you
so
know,
amazing.
I know it really is." And that really for me was that moment of like, yeah, this is what we really need as an organization. We need to continue doing this work because it also highlights what all these communities are going through, and it really is able to help people understand why organizations like ours is so important because of all the work that these other communities are doing and needing support in. And yeah, I this video series has made all of the feelings I already had just that much more firm. And there's no wavering on my commitment to that. This is the way we should be doing things. So yeah, just pure excitement and pride and joy when I watched the series. And I second when Ryan says you did an incredible job at filming everything and storytelling. Your editing is impeccable. It's been wonderful. It's been such a pride to work with you because you've been really, really, really amazing at being able to bring everything to life. Because when we were going to do this, I was like, oh my God, John must have so many hours of footage. How is he going to know what to select and how to connect it? And yeah, I mean, it's so obvious that this is your art form. You're so amazing at it. So yeah, that was my feeling around it. And that's every time I've seen it. I do have to admit at the beginning when I would see it, I'd be so embarrassed watching myself because as I've told you, as I told you, like it's so hard to not watch yourself and not nitpick and be like, oh my God, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Or why did I like hold myself in that way? Or there'd be moments I'm like, oh my God, I should have brushed my hair more or something like that. And so eventually after seeing enough of the episodes, I was like, I just got so absorbed more in the story and less on like being nitpicky of myself. And so it was wonderful. The whole thing was really wonderful.
Yeah. Well, you looked like a star. You are a star. And yeah, it was. I'm sure Momo wished you had brushed his hair certain times too. But you know, what are you going to do? I mean, I think that first of all, thank both of you for the kind words. I mean, it was an honor to work on this. I feel like everything that I've done in my life has led up to this in some way. Some skills of mine were necessary, including the little Spanish that I know, because obviously half of the series or more is in Spanish, and so that was very helpful, as well as Google Translate. But just having an understanding of what was being said was pretty important, obviously. But I think that the whole thing had this gritty feel to it, which I think was necessary because we were in the bush, literally, like we were by the lake, and we were hiking, and we were in these communities, like we were there. And so I think that the fact that we weren't super manicured and super like I'm definitely embarrassed how I looked in some of the shots, but like it is what it is. We're there really doing these things. It's not like a film. It's we're visiting these community partners, and a lot of the times, this for me, just a little behind the scenes stuff on the making of this. I do work in documentaries often, but I also work in narrative films. And so I do love being able to capture life as it is and the reality of things, and being able to tell those stories in a way that people feel like they're along the ride with us. And so that's what I was trying to do, is just make people feel like, hey, if you're supporting Seeds of Wisdom, I want you to know what it feels like to go on a site visit with us and see if you're donating money to Seeds of Wisdom. I want, we all wanted people to feel like they could see where their money goes and who it's supporting and the children that it's supporting. I think that that's quite powerful. And so this felt like one of the most important things I've ever made from that perspective. That being said, it was also really tough because, it's just, Ryan, you were a huge help. We couldn't have done it without you there, but, we were still, it was a lot to like try and capture sound and try and light things and try and film, in a way that like you're not being too intrusive, because we don't want to disrupt what's actually happening there. So, it was difficult from that perspective. It was also difficult from the perspective of these conversations lasted a long time. I mean, each episode could have been 20 minutes long or 30 minutes long, but the point wasn't necessarily to see the entire conversations. Maybe at some point we'll release those, but the point was just to see the love that was shared, the information that was shared, and the tangible sort of actionable things that happened while we were there and the ways that people can help. So yeah, this was an honor to work on. I hope we get to do more of this. Um, for me, watching the series, it's interesting because, yeah, I've never actually really worked on a series like this before, so it was unique
Mhm.
in that sense. But it's just nice to be able to go back. I'm a very nostalgic person, and so being able to go back and watch an adventure that you went on is such a gift, especially with people you care about. And so we'll always have that, we'll always know, this great adventure we went on, and we can just pull up YouTube and really dive in. So that being said, let's move on. I know people are probably dying to see Momo. I don't know if Momo's
Okay.
taking a nap next to you or
Yeah,
anything like that.
I will
So
quickly bring in the star. 1 second.
okay, all right. Brace yourselves, folks. This is what you've been waiting for. We
Here he
couldn't give it to you
comes.
too early.
Oh, he's literally just waking up from a
Wow.
nap.
There he
Yes.
is.
Here's my little guy.
I'm trying to make it to where you take up the whole screen. There he
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he just
Wow.
woke up.
Yeah, he was just napping. He was snoring on my side, to my side.
Hey, Momo.
Hey Momo.
So, why don't you talk about like how's Momo doing now, and does he go on adventures with you like that? Does he always go on adventures with you? Because I've noticed he has a service dog vest that he wears when we're in the airport. So what was it like traveling with him everywhere and having him by your side everywhere?
Yeah, so Momo has been traveling with me since he was a puppy. He has his little brother who passed a couple years ago, so it's always been the three of us. Um, and yeah, it's definitely a challenge to do the logistics of the travel, especially when it's international travel. It's that much more challenging. I don't know if you guys remember, but every time we were about to go on a flight, I had to find a vet office and had to get his health certificate because in Mexico, even for national travel, you need a health certificate saying that he can travel. Even though like it was, I think we would spend maximum 5 days or something like that in this particular. Oh no, when we were in Chiapas, I guess it was more than 5 days, but it would expire after like 3 days or something like that. The vet certificate. So basically, I was constantly having to go to vets. I think we did it in Mexico City, in Chiapas, San Cristobal, in Mérida, and then once again in Mexico City. So, it's logistically not easy, but it's all worth it because Momo is the best. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Wow.
he's
Well, thanks
an older
thanks
guy
for
now, which is why he's
waking him
sleeping.
up from his nap. Maybe he's
Yeah,
continuing his nap now. I'm not sure, but it's great to see
he
him.
is.
He's such a
Yeah.
trooper. I mean, he's not a young pup. I mean, he was keeping up with us. And how old is he now?
14. He's going to be 15 this year.
Wow.
That's incredible. He's an amazing pup, and we love him
Yeah.
deeply. All right. So then, um, Paloma, if you want to, we have a few questions in our comments, and one thing that has been asked is, how do you feel like these visits impacted these communities, and have you gotten feedback from them after the fact of, did you feel a difference for starters in the relationships after having met them, and what have they said about the impact that we might have had visiting them?
Yeah, well, while we were there, I think one of the most impactful comments that came from some of the community members was, we've felt forgotten about, and having you visit us makes us feel seen again. And thank you for not forgetting about us. And hearing words like that is always emotionally very impactful. Um, and other organizations just spoke about how supported they felt, that they felt like our interest in them wasn't just to have them be one more organization that we can include in our list of organizations we support, but truly they felt really seen and really truly supported and had real allies. So when you hear those types of comments, it's impossible to not really feel like you're walking the right path around how you do your work. And so that's how I feel about these site visits, is that we've got so much positive affirmation and so much gratitude, that it all made sense. It really all brought it all together. So from them themselves, it was clear that it was appreciated. And
That's
also
awesome.
they were wanting us to go back. They're like, and when you come back, you have to come at this time so you can see the progress of this. So their level of excitement was really high and quite present. And yeah, it was great. And I mean, it's easy for me to get pulled into that level of enthusiasm as well. So when they would say, I'm like, okay, what dates? When are you thinking? Even though I'm like, I know it was hard to get the board to approve it the first time. The second time, I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna approve it. But I guess it's just so hard not to get excited when they're so excited.
Totally. Well, fortunately, they live in beautiful places. So if we do visit and just around happen to be on vacation there, we
Yeah,
have friends there now. So that's always really
absolutely.
special. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So then, we have about 13 minutes left. I'd love to get into a few more things. But one thing that we have to talk about are just funny stories, anecdotes, things that happened that didn't make the series, because a lot happened that didn't make the series. I filmed a lot that happened that didn't make it into the show. But what things do you remember? And I have elephant memory, so I'll start us off and maybe jog your memory on some of the funny things that happened. So one of the things that happened when we were by Lake Ciscao, which is at the border of Mexico and Guatemala, we were literally just a football field or two away from Guatemala. So we went on a
Yeah.
walk to go to Guatemala, and we went to Guatemala, and on our way back we got lost, remember, and we kind of
Yeah.
went on
Yeah.
this circuitous path through the woods. And even Momo, I think at one point we were like, I think Momo knew we were lost like way before we knew we were lost.
Yeah.
So that was a funny one that I remember that I'll never forget. Also, I remember the first day we got there, or no, it wasn't the first day, but it was when we first got to San Cristobal Airport, and the taxi driver was
Oh
driving
my God.
us to the city. And these roads are very narrow, and this dude was flying, like he was just like on a mission. And I don't know if people are familiar with roads in Mexico, or if you've been overseas to some countries that share similar roads like this, but they constantly overtake people by going into the other lane of traffic and then going back. And sometimes the driver was doing that while he was going around a curve, so you would never know if a car was coming towards you or not. And I could
Yeah.
just hear you guys like breathing heavily behind me in the back seat. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, you know what, like this guy seems very comfortable doing this. I don't want to like say anything to him, because the second I say something to him, and he starts being conscious of what he's doing, is when it becomes dangerous. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna let this guy drive how he wants to drive. I'll let you guys speak to that, because we did talk to him about that eventually. And then
Yeah.
another final thing on episode 6, the final episode where we went to IFIP. Before that, we had a community partners dinner, which was wonderful. Everybody came back together again, and we had this dinner. But before that, we were scrambling to like find food.
Oh my
And you'd
God.
think that that would
Yeah.
be really easy. We'd been in this city for like over 2 weeks. We'd seen signs for where to get things, but of course, when the pressure's on, that's when things get weird. So we couldn't find chicken. It took a while to
That
find
was such
rice.
a nightmare. That was
We
so
were pretty
stressful.
stressed out trying to
Oh
find
my
food
God.
for this
I
community partners
remember
dinner.
I remember snapping at Ryan at one point. I was like, just help and do something. And he's like, but what? I'm like, anything. My
What do they
level of
want to drink? I don't
yeah,
know.
my level of stress was peak at that point. I do
Yeah. You
remember
guys
that.
have
That
any
was
things that didn't make the series that you remember?
I mean, I think all the things you mentioned are moments that definitely would have been perfect. The capture really like the different essences of the trip because it's yeah. I mean, the logistics of moving around, like you said, like having to adapt to a driving style that is definitely not safe but common. I mean, I'm used to it because in Peru everybody drives like that, but just because I'm used to it doesn't mean I like it. Which is why I eventually said something to the guy because I was just like, "You're gonna kill us if you
Yeah,
keep driving this way."
you were saying
Um,
something too.
yeah, I was getting irritated because it was so irresponsible and so unnecessary. Because I told him like, we're not in any rush whatsoever.
But I think
Um,
we caught him on a bad day. He didn't seem in the greatest mood.
I mean,
Uh,
I think people are. It's a drive, as John said, it's a drive that like he clearly has done a million and one times. And so
right.
I think what happens is people, when they've done something so many times, they're just like, ah, whatever. Like I know this road like the back of my hand. But you really never know the things that can happen. You know, there could be someone else coming from the other lane, the other side that doesn't know what they're doing, and an accident could be provoked. So that's my perspective. It's
Conditions.
just like how irresponsible that can be. But those are the logistics. Like the other logistic that we didn't include was going through a narco territory fight. Like that was
Mm,
something that none of us
yes.
expected to happen. The Chapitos were fighting against another narco group for a fentanyl fabrication territory in Copal, was it? Wait, how do you, what's the name of the town? I forget.
Was it
The
Komitan?
city? Comitan. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, our taxi driver was like, I'll take you, but only if we leave by, right, a certain hour
Right.
because he was afraid of us getting stopped and kidnapped and robbed along the way. So, you know, those are little elements. I don't know how little, but those are elements of, you know, the logistics around doing this kind of work. And that's kind of what I was making reference to when I said it's good for us to experience what our community members also experience. Like our awareness of what it feels like to live in an area where there's that danger of narcos stopping you, robbing you, and kidnapping you is real. And for us to have gone through that is important because it really grounds us in the awareness that we need to be able to best understand and empathize with our community partners. So while I'm not saying it's always great to put yourself in danger, I'm saying that the benefit of it is you get to have a little version of an experience of what our community partners are going through, and that's always important. So I guess those are some of the background things that nobody got to see in the videos, but it's important to know about.
Yeah, and just to speak on that, like sometimes it seems like it's blown out of proportion. You see a lot of this stuff in the news, but it's another thing to have the community members tell you, you know, be careful. We'll get you a driver. Like, you know, we deal with this. This is real. So just, you know, watch out. So
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
that was interesting for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we did get stopped a couple of times and asked for our passport, which that reminds me, remember the last day in San Cristobal, we were leaving and we were like not that far out. We were like 10 minutes out on our way to the airport to catch our flight. And we were already thinking like, okay, we left with just about enough time to like catch this flight. Like we're good. But then you remembered that you left your
Yeah.
passport in Airbnb, like in a drawer or something like that. So we had
Yes.
to like
Yeah.
turn around and go back to get your passport. That was hilarious.
I
I felt
I
so bad.
almost I almost killed Ryan because the funny thing is when we finally made it to the airport, he was the only one who was able to check in without any problems because they were like, "Oh, you're too late because you're supposed to be here way earlier to check in with a dog." I was I was like so fuming. I was like, "Oh my God, if I can't catch this flight because Ryan left his passport." And then like I think was it true, John, that that was one of the times when like there was like no seats, so you had to like a standby seat, and then
Oh,
you
that's
joined me.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made me wait for a while, which
So
that's
that,
fine. I've
but
dealt with that before.
All right.
but that was the ironic thing was like the one person who caused it all was the one who most easily checked in. That's why I was like, I remember telling this to Ryan the other day, and he was just like, no, that John didn't have that problem. Then I'm like, oh yes, he did. I was like, this is all caused because of the passport being
That's
left.
hilarious. As much as I could talk about all the like funny anecdotes and stories that happen behind the scenes, we have 5 more minutes, so let's
Well,
jam pack this with some of the exciting things coming up and what we hope to get out of this whole experience. So, for anybody watching and for any supporters of Seeds of Wisdom, the way that you can watch the series is on YouTube. So every episode is now streaming on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Seeds of Wisdom. And you can also access it from our website, seedsofwisdom.earth. And you can donate, you can contribute, and each episode is also on our Voices of the Indigenous section of our website. And I think maybe we can make an announcement. You never know in this world, what's going to happen or not. But um, Paloma, do you want to talk a little bit about like potentially where we would do our next site visits and where the next series would take place?
Yeah, well, probably the one that's most secure is next year, Kenya, because the next IFIP is going to be in Kenya next year in February. And we have a lot of partners in Kenya and Uganda. So that would be the most um, probably likely one. But there's also a program that we're supporting in the YU territory in Colombia that I went to last year, pretty much just a few months after our trip. I went, and they are a program focused on traditional tattoo conservation. And actually, Ryan was on that committee that selected that program. And I went, and it was amazing. They're doing incredible work. And this year, they're going to be doing a international traditional indigenous gathering. So
Wow.
there is a high likelihood of us being at that one. But for sure, it's going to be the Kenya one.
Wow. Yeah. So that would be incredible. If there is a Voices of Indigenous Colombia, that would be really special. But for sure, the next IFIP conference, Indigenous Funders Conference, is going to be in Kenya. And we have community partners, obviously, in Africa. We have the Maasai tribe, Chief Salaton, who, we gave the Wisdom Treasure Award to a couple of years back. So that would be amazing to visit those communities and do a series there and document our journey there. That'd be really fun.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about all of that. Of course, it's all pending what happens. I guess what we're approved for, and if we have the funding to do so. But that's why, if you support the series and if you support Seeds of Wisdom, it allows us to do more of this work, and it allows more of these communities to be impacted by not just the money, but the relationships that they're forming and feeling seen.
Yeah.
So on that note too, we just have a couple of minutes left. So I just, I'll let you guys say whatever you want to say, just to take us out. But I'd just like to say a special thank you to Kim Langbecker. Kim was our previous executive director. She brought us on board and she helped create all this. And so, special thank you to her for her time and her service uh, working for Seeds of Wisdom, previously Sacred Fire Foundation. It was an honor working with her and alongside her. We're going to continue working with her, but maybe just not on the Seeds of Wisdom side of things. Besides the podcast, Kim will be um, doing the podcast, so she'll still be in the family. But just a special thank you to her and welcoming our new interim ED, Rubina Cohen. Welcome, Rubina. It's going to be fascinating working with her. She's been here since before we were here, helping with the marketing and strategizing and social media. So she knows what she's doing. She's an incredible human being as well. So that's going to be really exciting. So you guys, why don't you say what you want to say just to take us out?
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say I'm so honored to be a part of this adventure. I'm so thankful to Seeds of Wisdom for welcoming me into the organization. Yeah, I think what this is here, these site visits, the just everything that you've captured is amazing, and I think it'll be great to see where this goes in the future. And again, I'm sorry, fumbling my words a little bit. I'm not used to this. Trying to, say things clearly. But yeah, I'm so thankful for this opportunity. So amazing. Changed my life, honestly. And I'm looking forward to the future and what that will bring. And thank you guys. Love you guys. You guys are just great, great people. So great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, and also thank you to everybody, to Kim, to the board for believing in the vision, to both of you to being integral parts of the creation of all of this, to having Momo on site at all times, to always have that level of just, I don't know, joy and play in everything that we did. And I'm just so honestly so proud and so excited by what our community partners are doing. It always gives me hope when I see such amazing work being done, because it's communities taking care of their own needs, identifying their needs and taking care of it, and coming to us to be their allies. And what an honor to be chosen as an ally. And yes, just pure gratitude is what I feel at being involved in all of this on all the levels in which I'm involved in. And I hope to continue doing this for as long as I possibly can, because I don't see another thing that could just fill my heart with this much joy and as this work does. So thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, guys. With that, thank you for all of you for watching this. You can watch the Voices of the Indigenous Mexico site visit series on our YouTube channel. We'll be posting clips from it to all of our social media channels, but please, by all means, watch and share the YouTube series. And make sure to watch all the way through, because even after the credits, there's always a blooper. And those
Yes.
tend to be
Oh, yeah.
people's favorite parts of the episodes. So definitely watch those bloopers at the end of each episode. And if you if you'd like to support the cause and support Indigenous communities around the world, so more things like this can happen, please visit our website, seedsofwisdom.earth, and that will give all the information you need for how you can support Indigenous communities and support site visits like this, and help the next site visit series happen as well. So with that, thank you very much. Until next time. And
Bye.
we'll see you all very soon. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.